brought you on because nobody cares about the Oscars as an institution more than you. It's been a traumatic few years. It's peaking this year with Oscars that I don't even know how to describe from a category standpoint. It seems like the three hosts they picked were probably the 79th, 80th, and 81st choices. Everyone was passing up, including reportedly John Hamm. And I almost wonder, is the Oscars trying to tank? Are they trying to tank for draft picks? What's going on with the Oscars and how do we save this?
I've gotten over trying to save it, honestly. I've spent the last 4 years on the pod trying to figure out a way to get the Academy to listen to me, and I think I'm ready to accept that I was wrong. You know, my big talking point was try to nominate more films that more people have seen. That historically over the years, when Titanic is up for Best Picture, when Avatar is up for Best Picture, Gladiator, Gravity, Black Panther, the numbers are usually higher on the ratings. Why do I care about the ratings? Because I want Hollywood to make more good movies for adults. And so Gladiator is a middle ground movie that we don't really get a whole lot of these days. But I was wrong. That was the Academy doesn't care about that. And also the Academy is not one person. It's right now 9,500 people. And so I think that they have just decided, perhaps wisely, to become the Pulitzer Prize. To say that the only thing that we care about here is acknowledging what we feel as a voting body are the best movies, best performances of the year, bar none. That includes foreign films, that includes low budget films, that includes films from streamers, that includes studio movies. If you look at the nominations this year, this is what they feel are the best films. And it's hard for me to argue. A lot of the films that are on their top 10 Best Picture nominees were on my top 10 movies of the year. So in that respect, I think that they have settled on their mission, and that's completely fine because honestly, Bill, the Academy is extremely well positioned financially right now. They have a war chest of cash. And so with the war chest in place, the ABC deal in place to air the show for the next 6 or 7 years, they're just doing what they want to do. As far as the host goes, that's a different story. I think what has happened to the show in terms of their ability to draw A-list talent is a serious issue. And while Amy Schumer and Regina Hall and Wanda Sykes are not bad picks for hosts, they're not what people were hoping for. 3 weeks ago, we were like, are Zendaya and Tom Holland the two most exciting young superstars in Hollywood going to host the Oscars? That was maybe a pipe dream, but that was a conversation that was being had. And now we're at Wanda Sykes. You know, I like Wanda Sykes, but I mean, 81st pick might be even a little bit high for where she lands on the host of the Academy Awards. So the show itself is in a tough spot.
Yeah, this is Bob Hope, Frank Sinatra, Johnny Carson, Billy Crystal, David Letterman, Whoopi Goldberg, like really, really famous people at great points in their career hosting the Oscars, basically for the entire time people cared. I think if you're going to say, like, what are the positives? I mean, they did manage to really diversify and make younger the Academy voting thing, right? They grew it by almost 3,000 people, and I think a lot of that's reflected in the movies. And by the way, like, you know, we do this all the time on the rewatchables, right? We'll go back on a year and we'll be like, why didn't that movie, why wasn't it a bigger thing? What happened with, you know, whatever? Wait, why didn't Boys in the Hood do better? Right? How did Driving Miss Daisy win an Oscar? And we, over and over again, we do, how did Ordinary People beat Raging Bull? And it basically always comes back to the answer of, oh, it's just like old white Academy. And that's what they like. And that was Oscar bait. And that's why they picked it. So that shifted. But I think you've been pushing this forever about adding categories and how that's a way to make this more fun. And they won't listen. They just want to have the same. Basically, it's 6 categories that mean the most, right? It's director, film, and the 4 acting categories. Then it kind of drops a level. But they should have a popcorn movie. It should be like, what was the best popcorn movie of the year? And this year it would be Spider-Man versus whoever. And I'm sorry, but this goes back to something I've been writing about back when my fingers worked. Like, am I going to turn the channel when it's like coming up next, the best popcorn movie or best big budget movie, whatever you want to fucking call it? That's 6 minutes where I'm watching the Oscars, which is the whole point. Like, get us to watch the Oscars.
So there's they attempted to do this 3 years ago when John Bailey was still the president of the Academy. They tried to introduce the idea of the popular Oscar. And at least online and within the industry, there was a lot of outcry. The reason I think there was outcry is because that was not a very cleverly pitched idea. They didn't put it in a position to succeed. To me, the better way to get more people invested is to not just include one more category that's for popular movies. It's to include a bunch more categories. It's to have breakthrough performance. It's to have first-time director. It's to have best on-screen pairing. It's to have the award for the person who had the more than one performance that excelled this year. There's a way to... The number one category to me is like basically best stunt, which is basically an opt-in for best live action scene. You know, like there are ways to get people excited about what was on screen at the movies throughout the years. And it's not as if like these are all sacred cows that the Academy has. The Academy just fused 2 sound awards this year, sound editing and sound mixing, into one award for best sound. So they change their own rules all the time. It's not like this stuff can't be flexible. To me, they should be trying to expand the palette of the number of movies that are covered and get people excited about what movies are by rewarding more movies. And it's not really that hard to do. The tricky thing with popular Oscar is they are doing something this year where they are letting people through the Academy's website vote for what the Twitter's favorite Oscar is.
It's idiotic. I hate it.
I completely agree. It's really, really stupid. That is not why people tune into the Oscars. They don't want to know what the public thinks is the most cool movie of the year. The Academy is representative of the people who make movies. So theoretically, they know the most about movies. People who are in the Academy do like popcorn movies. They don't hate them. The problem is there is this wide disparity between what popcorn movies are now and where they were 20 years ago. Spider-Man No Way Home, that maybe isn't people in the Academy's one of their 10 favorite movies, but Dune was. And Dune in some ways is a popcorn movie. So how can we find more categories where Dune and No Way Home are competing? I think there's a lot of work that can be done, but they're basically trying to use the 2000 model of categories with the 22 version of where the movie industry is. And there's just a dissonance. People are going to turn on this show and they're going to see a movie like, I don't know, Drive My Car, which I think is an incredible movie. But they're going to be like, I have never heard of that and I'm never going to watch it. It's a 3-hour Japanese film about grief. That's a hard sell to the common moviegoer. Yeah. So I think they're in this really tricky in-between place, and it seems like they're at peace with it, honestly. That's the sense I've gotten.
Well, the show is always flawed by how long the show was, which we complained about forever, and how many of the categories most people just could care less about, right? And the Emmys flipped it the other way, and the Emmys has basically 2 different nights, right? And they kind of stack the second night with the awards that the normal person would care about. And I think that would be one of the things I would think about with the Oscars. I would have 2 separate nights. I would get rid of a lot of the more obscure awards that still matter. They still count as Oscars. Listen, I won at the Creative Arts Emmy Awards for 30 for 30 Short. I didn't care that it wasn't during the actual Emmys. We won a fucking Emmy, and I think that would be the reaction. I think the thing that we always go back to when we talk about these movie years with the rewatchables is how badly the Oscars capture the year. And it's not just like whether the pick is wrong or whatever, but ideally, if you're doing this, and I think this is the case for any award, and I think the NBA and sports leagues could do better with this too. You kind of want to capture what happened with the year, right? The NBA has Rookie of the Year. That's a really important award. It tells you like, oh, that guy was the best rookie that came in, and you think of the year and you think like, oh, 1993, that was the Shaq year. And you go on through, this year will be the Evan Mobley year. The fact that they don't have like a Rookie of the Year award for the Oscars is just insane. Like you could argue you could have Rookie of the Year and Breakthrough Performance.
Yeah, I agree.
You could have the popcorn thing, whatever you want to call that, for the big budget, whatever it is. Those movies have a different ideal than Coda does, right? Coda, God bless Coda. I'm glad it got nominated. Coda and Spider-Man have 2 different objectives.
They're playing a totally different game.
Spider-Man's trying to be an awesome movie that also makes a ton of money and has good actors in it and the whole thing. And I just think I think the Oscars has to realize like this isn't 1974 anymore. This isn't Chinatown going in, it's Godfather 2, and this is just how movies are. It's not. It's people have different objectives. There's different money. And as you said, like they're not making Gladiator anymore. They tried to do that with Last Duel this year, and guess what? People don't want to go to the theater to see it. So I think the stuff you mentioned, I think the best stunt is a great idea. That would be so cool. That would be such a fun 6-7 minutes. I like the idea of just who had the best year.
Yeah. Who's the MVP of movies?
Like DiCaprio had that year when he had Departed and Blood Diamond. Did anyone top that for that year? We talked about De Niro had years in 95, 96, 97. Like De Niro had Heat and Casino released 3 weeks apart from each other. And maybe that should be an award. But it just needs to be a complete revamping of how they think about it. And do you feel remotely optimistic that they'll ever rethink this?
Some of it will be dictated by what the numbers look like after the telecast in March, because the numbers were at an all-time low last year. There are a variety of reasons for that. We were still, in the throes of the pandemic, and there were significantly fewer big-time films released that year, so it was harder to sell. But I think also the way that show was produced told us a lot about how the Academy is thinking about its award show right now, which is they asked Steven Soderbergh to be the producer. I love Steven Soderbergh. He is literally one of my 5 favorite directors, but I didn't think he produced a very good show, but he produced a show for Hollywood. He produced a show for people in the industry. His goal was to make that seem like a clubby environment where they were talking to each other about the work that they did. And that didn't bring in more people. It didn't bring in people at all. And if the numbers are beneath last year's show, I think you're going to sense more panic. I think you're going to sense that they feel like they have to reinvent certain aspects of the show.
But I don't even think it's about the ratings. I think it's about conversation.
But the conversation is still pretty strong. I mean, take it from me. I talk about the Oscars for 4 months a year, every year. There's a listenership for my conversations about the Academy Awards with Amanda or with you on this show. Like, there is still engagement online with the show.
So but what about like me and my dad at dinner talking about that? Because I do feel like that was the thing in the 80s and 90s. We would sit at dinner and be like, Pulp Fiction, Forrest Gump, or Shawshank, who do you think should win?
I mean, no disrespect to Dr. Bill, but I don't think the Academy gives a fuck about your dad.
Yeah, I guess they don't
think they care. I think they care about people who are under 50 years old. And that's why I think the Zendaya and Tom Holland thing would have been a stroke of genius. They wouldn't have had to give an award to Spider-Man, but they would have acknowledged Spider-Man at the show. And that's the other thing they can do. They can bring people onto the show as presenters or for, comic bits or other things that show us. To your point, this is the year of movies.
What about Zendaya and Fez?
If we can get Fezco on the Academy Awards, then 2022 is a win. That's all I'm saying. If we can get Fezco to beat the shit out of Nate on stage, that I'm in.